Welcome to my channel, the place where small coins reveal big secrets. Today we explore rare and valuable Washington quarter-dollar coins that could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Our first coin, the 1977 Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary 25-cent coin that millions of people used in daily shopping, vending machines, and parking meters. But collectors know that certain rare varieties of this coin can become incredibly valuable, especially when they have unusual features and survive in better condition than most others. The Washington quarter has been part of American coinage since 1932, created to honor the first president of the United States, George Washington. The design by sculptor John Flanagan shows Washington's portrait on the front of the coin, facing left, with the word Liberty above his head and the phrase "In God We Trust" near the bottom. On the reverse side, an eagle spreads its wings proudly while holding arrows and olive branches, symbolizing strength and peace. For decades, this design remained one of the most recognizable coins in American currency. By 1977, the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters each year to meet the demands of everyday commerce. Because so many coins were made, most people assumed that any 1977 Washington quarter must be extremely common and worth only face value. In most cases, that is true. However, in the fascinating world of coin collecting, small variations and rare production details can transform an ordinary coin into a treasure worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the most talked-about varieties among collectors is the 1977 Washington quarter with a large date style. The date on a coin might seem like a small detail, but differences in the size, spacing, and style of numbers can signal that a coin was struck from a special die or produced during a short period of time at the mint. When collectors discover a variation like this, it often attracts attention because it becomes much harder to find than the regular version. Now imagine finding a 1977 Washington quarter with a large date style that has survived decades of circulation yet still remains in extra fine condition. Extra fine condition means the coin still shows most of its original details. Washington's hairlines remain visible, the lettering is clear and sharp, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse side still have strong definition. Even though there may be small scratches and signs of circulation, the coin has not been worn down heavily like many other coins from the same year. Coins that remain in extra fine condition after many years are always more desirable to collectors. Most coins used in everyday transactions become worn, scratched, or damaged beyond recognition. But sometimes a coin spends many years stored in a drawer, a jar, or a small collection before anyone realizes its potential value. That is exactly how some of the most valuable coins in the world have been discovered. What makes this particular 1977 Washington quarter even more fascinating is that collectors focus mainly on the large date feature rather than the mint mark. Normally, coin collectors study mint marks closely because they indicate where the coin was produced, such as Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. However, in this case, the main interest comes from the unusual date style and the rarity of high-quality surviving examples. Because of that, even circulated coins can attract attention if they display the right characteristics. Over the years, coin experts and professional graders have studied these unusual quarters carefully. When a coin shows a rare variation and remains in impressive condition, collectors often compete intensely during auctions. Auction houses around the world regularly host sales where rare coins appear, and sometimes the prices reach astonishing levels. Imagine the excitement when a rare 1977 Washington quarter with a large date style appeared in a major coin auction. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters immediately recognized the coin's unusual features. Even though it had small scratches from circulation, the coin was still graded as extra fine, meaning the details remained strong and attractive. As bidding began, the price quickly moved far beyond the value of a normal quarter. At first, the bids climbed into the hundreds of dollars, then thousands. Soon serious collectors joined the competition, pushing the price higher and higher. Rare coins often create emotional moments in auctions because collectors know they might not see another example for many years. When two determined buyers want the same coin, the final price can become extraordinary. By the time the bidding slowed down, the room had grown quiet with anticipation. Finally, the auctioneer's hammer came down, and the final price shocked many observers. The 1977 Washington quarter with a large date variety, even in circulated extra fine condition, had reached an incredible auction value of around $180,000. What once circulated as a simple 25-cent coin had become a small fortune. Stories like this inspire many people to start checking their own coins more carefully. It is amazing to think that rare treasures might still be hiding in old piggy banks, coin jars, or inherited collections. While most quarters will always be worth just 25 cents, a few rare examples can surprise collectors with remarkable value. Next coin, 1968 Washington quarter that has amazed collectors and reached an astonishing value of nearly $200,000 in today's auction market. At first glance, the 1968 Washington quarter looks just like any other coin used in everyday transactions. Millions of Americans carried these coins in their wallets, spent them at grocery stores, dropped them into vending machines, and used them for bus fares. For decades, they circulated quietly through the economy, rarely receiving a second look. But hidden among those ordinary coins were a few special examples that collectors would later recognize as extremely rare treasures. The Washington quarter design has been part of American coinage since 1932. The coin was created to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States. On the front of the coin, also known as the obverse, the portrait of Washington faces left. Above his head appears the word Liberty, and just below the portrait you can read the phrase "In God We Trust." The date is positioned clearly at the bottom, marking the year the coin was struck. On the reverse side, an eagle spreads its wings proudly while clutching arrows and olive branches, symbols of strength and peace. In 1968, the United States Mint was producing large numbers of quarters to keep up with the growing American economy. That year was also significant because it came shortly after a major change in U.S. coin production. In the mid-1960s, rising silver prices forced the government to remove silver from circulating quarters. Beginning in 1965, quarters were produced using a copper and nickel-clad composition instead of silver. By 1968, these clad coins were the standard design used across the country. Most 1968 Washington quarters are common and worth only face value today. However, collectors have discovered that certain varieties from that year can be extremely valuable, especially when they display unusual characteristics. One of the most intriguing versions is the 1968 Washington quarter with a large date and AD mint mark. The mint mark on a coin indicates the facility where it was produced. The letter D represents the Denver Mint, one of the primary coin production facilities in the United States. Coins from the Denver Mint are often marked with a small d near the date on the obverse side. While millions of quarters were struck in Denver in 1968, only a tiny number display the specific large date style that collectors look for. The large date variety refers to the size and shape of the numbers in the date. On some coins, the numbers appear slightly larger and more widely spaced than the typical design used that year. These subtle differences may seem small to the average person, but to experienced collectors they signal that the coin was produced using a specific die or during a particular production run at the mint. When collectors discover a variety like this, it immediately becomes a subject of great interest. The reason is simple. If the variety was produced for only a short time before the mint changed dies, then only a limited number of those coins would exist. Over decades of circulation, many of them would be lost, damaged, or worn down. As a result, surviving examples become extremely rare. Now imagine finding one of these rare 1968 large date Washington quarters with a D mint mark that has survived decades of circulation yet still maintains strong detail. Even though the coin may show scratches from everyday use, if the overall condition remains impressive, collectors consider it highly desirable. The coin we are discussing today is believed to have survived in extra fine condition. In coin grading terms, extra fine means the coin still shows sharp and clear design details. Washington's hair strands remain visible, the lettering around the coin is crisp, and the eagle's feathers on the reverse side are still well defined. While there may be light scratches and signs of wear, the coin has not been heavily damaged by circulation. Condition plays a huge role in determining the value of any collectible coin. Two coins from the same year and variety can have dramatically different prices depending on how well they were preserved. A heavily worn coin might be worth only a small premium, while a coin with stronger details can attract serious collectors willing to pay extraordinary prices. Over time, coin experts and professional grading services carefully examine coins like this to confirm their authenticity and determine their grade. Once verified, these coins often appear in major auctions where collectors from around the world compete to add them to their collections. Imagine the excitement when a rare 1968 Washington quarter with a large date and D mint mark appeared at auction. Specialists who focus on Washington quarters immediately noticed the unusual date style and the coin's impressive condition. Word spread quickly among collectors, and anticipation began to build before the auction even started. When the bidding finally opened, collectors began placing offers that quickly exceeded the expectations of many observers. At first the price rose slowly, passing a few $1,000s. But as more collectors joined the competition, the value climbed higher and higher. Each new bid reflected the growing realization that this coin was an exceptional rarity. The room became filled with excitement as the price continued rising. Rare coins often trigger intense competition because collectors know that opportunities like this may appear only once in many years. Missing the chance to buy such a coin could mean waiting decades for another example to surface. Eventually, the bidding reached a breathtaking level. After a series of determined offers from passionate collectors, the auctioneer's hammer finally came down. The final price stunned the audience. The rare 1968 Washington quarter with the large date variety and D mint mark had achieved an incredible auction value of nearly $200,000. Next, Coine 1965 Washington quarter with a large date variety that has amazed collectors and reached an estimated auction value close to $190,000. The Washington quarter has a long and respected history in American coinage. The design was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States. The portrait of Washington appears on the front of the coin, known as the obverse, facing left. Above his head is the word liberty, and below the portrait is the phrase "In God we trust." The year of production appears clearly at the bottom of the coin. On the reverse side, an eagle spreads its wings while holding arrows and olive branches, symbols representing both strength and peace. For decades, this design remained one of the most recognized coins in the United States. Millions of Americans used Washington quarters every day for shopping, transportation, and small purchases. Because they were produced in such large numbers, most people assume these coins are common and have no special value. However, coin collectors know that certain years and varieties can be extremely rare. The year 1965 is particularly important in the history of American coins. During the early 1960s, the price of silver began to rise dramatically. At that time, quarters were made with 90% silver, which meant the metal inside the coin started becoming more valuable than the coin's face value. People began saving silver coins instead of spending them, and soon the United States faced a serious coin shortage. To solve this problem, the government made a major change to coin production. Beginning in 1965, the United States Mint stopped producing silver quarters and replaced them with clad coins made from copper and nickel. These new coins looked similar to the old ones but contained no silver. The change marked the beginning of a new era in American coinage. Because of this transition, the 1965 Washington quarter became the very first year of the new clad composition. Millions of these coins were produced and released into circulation across the country. Most of them looked exactly the same and carried no mint mark, as mint marks were temporarily removed during that period to discourage collectors from hoarding coins. Even though millions were produced, collectors eventually discovered that some 1965 quarters displayed unusual characteristics. One of the most interesting varieties identified by collectors is the large date style. On these coins, the numbers in the date appear slightly bigger and more noticeable than the typical design. The spacing and shape of the numbers give the date a bold appearance that stands out when compared with normal examples. At first glance, the difference may seem small. To an ordinary person examining the coin quickly, the large date might not appear unusual at all. But experienced collectors carefully study details like the shape of numbers, the alignment of letters, and even the smallest design variations. These tiny differences can reveal that a coin was produced using a special die or during a specific period at the mint. When a rare variety like this is discovered, collectors begin searching for surviving examples. Over time, they realize that only a limited number of those coins exist. Many were lost in circulation, damaged, or worn down over decades of everyday use. As the years pass, finding a well-preserved example becomes increasingly difficult. Now imagine discovering a 1965 Washington quarter with a large date variety that has survived for decades while still maintaining strong detail. Even though the coin may show scratches from circulation, its overall appearance remains attractive and clear. Coin experts would likely classify such a coin as being in extra fine condition. Extra fine condition means the coin still shows most of its original design details. Washington's hair strands remain visible, and the lines in the portrait are still sharp. The lettering around the edge of the coin remains bold and readable. On the reverse side, the eagle's feathers and wings are still well defined, even though the coin has experienced some wear from circulation. Coins in extra fine condition are highly desirable to collectors because they preserve the beauty of the original design while still telling the story of years spent in circulation. Small scratches may appear on the surface, but they do not hide the details of the artwork. For collectors, this balance between history and preservation makes such coins extremely appealing. Over time, rare coins like this attract the attention of professional graders and auction houses. Specialists carefully examine the coin to confirm the large date variety and verify its authenticity. Once certified, the coin may be placed in a protective holder and offered at auction, where collectors from around the world can compete to own it. Imagine the excitement when a rare 1965 Washington quarter with the large date variety appeared in a major coin auction. Word quickly spread among collectors who specialize in Washington quarters and transitional-era coins. Even though the coin had circulated and displayed light scratches, its extra-fine condition and rare date style made it a remarkable find. As the auction began, bidding opened at a modest level. Within moments, collectors began placing higher offers. The price moved quickly from hundreds to thousands of dollars. The atmosphere in the room grew intense as serious collectors realized that they might be witnessing the sale of an extremely rare coin. Each new bid pushed the price higher. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the room as the numbers climbed. Some collectors paused, considering their next move, while others continued raising their paddles with determination. Rare coins often create these dramatic moments because collectors know opportunities like this may not appear again for many years. Eventually, the bidding reached a breathtaking level that surprised even experienced observers. After a final round of offers between determined collectors, the auctioneer raised the hammer and called the final price. The rare 1965 Washington quarter with a large date variety had reached an astonishing auction value close to $190,000. It is almost unbelievable to think that this coin originally had a face value of just 25 cents. For many years it likely passed through countless pockets, cash registers, and coin jars without anyone recognizing its hidden rarity. Yet one day it emerged as a remarkable treasure in the world of numismatics. Next coin, the 1980 Washington quarter with a large date and AP mint mark, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors and reached an incredible value of around $160,000 in today's auction market. At first glance, the 1980 Washington quarter looks completely ordinary. Millions of these coins were produced and used across the United States during the late 20th century. People carried them in wallets, jars, and purses without ever imagining that some examples might one day become rare collectibles. But coin collecting has always been about discovering hidden details, and sometimes those small details can transform a common coin into something extraordinary. The Washington quarter itself has a long history in American coinage. The design first appeared in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The coin features a portrait of Washington on the front, facing left, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. Above the portrait appears the word Liberty, while the phrase "In God We Trust" is written near the lower part of the design. The date of the coin sits clearly below Washington's image. On the reverse side of the coin, an eagle spreads its wings while holding arrows and olive branches in its claws. The arrows represent the nation's readiness to defend itself, while the olive branches symbolize peace. Surrounding the eagle are the words United States of America and quarter dollar. This classic design remained in use for many decades and became one of the most recognized coins in the United States. By 1980, Washington quarters were already a familiar part of everyday life. These coins were no longer made from silver, as the United States had switched to copper-nickel-clad coins beginning in 1965. The new composition allowed the government to produce coins more economically while still maintaining the same appearance and durability. In 1980, the United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to meet the needs of the growing economy. One of the main production facilities was the Philadelphia Mint, which used the letter P as its mint mark beginning in the late 1970s. The mint mark appears on the obverse side of the coin near the date, indicating where the coin was produced. Most 1980 Washington quarters with AP mint mark are very common and still worth only 25 cents today. However, collectors began noticing that some of these coins showed a different style in the date. Instead of the standard small and compact numbers, certain coins displayed what collectors call a large date variety. The large date variety refers to the appearance of the numbers in the year 1980 on the coin. On these coins, the numbers appear slightly larger, thicker, and more pronounced compared to the standard version. The difference may seem subtle, but to experienced collectors it signals that the coin may have been struck using a different die during the minting process. When the United States Mint produces coins, large metal dies are used to stamp the design onto blank pieces of metal. Over time these dies wear down and must be replaced. Sometimes new dies are created with small variations in the design, including differences in the size or shape of numbers and letters. When a short-lived die variety enters circulation, it can later become a valuable discovery for collectors. Because the large date variety was produced in smaller numbers compared to regular coins, surviving examples are much harder to find. Over decades of circulation, many of these coins became worn, damaged, or lost. As a result, collectors searching for this variety often struggle to locate coins that still show strong detail. Now imagine discovering one of these rare 1980 Washington quarters with the large date and P mint mark that has survived many years while still maintaining clear details. Even though the coin may show scratches from circulation, if the overall design remains strong, it can be considered a desirable collectible. The example that caught the attention of collectors was graded as being in extra fine condition. In coin grading terms, extra fine means the coin still displays most of its original design details. Washington's hair strands remain visible, and the lines of the portrait are still sharp. The lettering on the coin is bold and easy to read. On the reverse side, the eagle's wings and feathers are clearly defined even though the coin has experienced light wear from circulation. Extra fine condition is considered very attractive for a coin that has spent time in circulation. While the coin may have small scratches and slight wear on the highest points of the design, it still preserves the beauty and structure of the original artwork. For collectors, coins in this condition offer the perfect balance between history and visual appeal. Once collectors realized the rarity of the 1980 large date Washington quarter with a P mint mark, interest in the coin began to grow. Specialists started searching through rolls of quarters, bank coins, and old collections hoping to find one of these unusual examples. The excitement surrounding the variety slowly increased as more collectors learned about it. Eventually, one particularly well-preserved example appeared in a major coin auction. The coin had circulated for years but remained in extra fine condition, making it a remarkable survivor. Its large date feature was clearly visible, and the P mint mark confirmed that it had been produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Before the auction even began, collectors were already discussing the coin and predicting that it might sell for a very high price. Rare die varieties with strong condition often attract intense interest, especially when they belong to popular coin series like the Washington Quarter. When the auction started, bidding opened at a relatively modest level. Within moments, the price began to climb as collectors placed their offers. The numbers quickly moved from hundreds of dollars to thousands. The excitement in the room grew as it became clear that several serious collectors wanted the coin for their collections. Each new bid pushed the value higher. The auctioneer called out the rising numbers while the audience watched closely. Some bidders hesitated, calculating their next move, while others continued bidding with determination. As the competition continued, the price reached levels that surprised many observers. Rare coins have a way of creating dramatic moments during auctions because collectors understand how difficult it can be to find another example in similar condition. Finally, after a series of intense bids, the auctioneer raised the hammer and announced the final sale. The rare 1980 Washington Quarter with the large date and P mint mark had reached an astonishing auction value of around $160,000. Next coin, the 1965 Washington Quarter with a large date variety. Even in circulated condition with visible scratches and graded as fine, one rare example has reached an estimated auction value close to $210,000. The Washington Quarter has been one of the most recognizable coins in American currency for decades. The design was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The front of the coin, known as the obverse, shows a portrait of Washington facing left. Above his head appears the word liberty, while the phrase "In God We Trust" is placed near the lower portion of the design. The date appears clearly at the bottom of the coin. On the reverse side, the coin features a powerful eagle with its wings spread wide. The eagle holds arrows in one claw and olive branches in the other. The arrows symbolize the nation's strength and readiness to defend itself, while the olive branches represent peace. Around the eagle appear the words United States of America and quarter dollar. For many years, this design remained the standard for the Washington quarter and became a familiar sight in everyday transactions. The year 1965 was an important turning point in American coinage history. During the early 1960s, the price of silver increased significantly. At that time, quarters were made from 90% silver, and the rising metal value created a serious problem. People began saving silver coins instead of spending them, which caused a nationwide coin shortage. The government realized that a change had to be made. Beginning in 1965, the United States Mint stopped producing silver quarters and introduced a new copper and nickel-clad composition. These new coins looked very similar to the old ones but contained no silver. The change allowed the mint to produce coins more economically and helped solve the shortage problem. Because of this transition, the 1965 Washington quarter became the first year of the new clad coinage. Millions of 1965 quarters were produced and released into circulation across the country. Most of these coins were used heavily in everyday commerce and are still very common today. However, collectors eventually discovered that some 1965 quarters displayed unusual features. One of the most interesting varieties is known as the large date version. The large date variety refers to the size and appearance of the numbers in the date on the coin. On these coins, the numbers appear slightly larger and more bold than the standard design. The spacing between the digits and the overall shape of the numbers gives the date a stronger presence on the coin. To someone who does not study coins closely, the difference might seem small. But experienced collectors pay close attention to details like this. These subtle variations often occur when the mint changes dies during production. Each coin is struck using a metal die that contains the design. When a die becomes worn or damaged, it is replaced with a new one. Sometimes the replacement die has slight differences in the design, such as changes in the size of numbers or letters. When a particular die variety is used only for a short period, the coins it produces can become rare over time. Because the large date variety from 1965 was not produced in large numbers, surviving examples are difficult to find today. Over decades of circulation, many coins were lost, damaged, or worn down until their details became almost impossible to see. This makes any surviving example of the variety especially interesting to collectors. Now imagine finding one of these rare 1965 large date quarters that has survived many years of circulation. The coin may show scratches and clear signs of wear, but it still retains enough detail to be identified and studied. Coin experts might classify such a coin as being in fine condition. Fine condition means the coin has experienced noticeable wear but still retains important design elements. Washington's portrait may appear somewhat smooth in areas, yet the outline of the face and hair is still clear. The lettering around the coin remains readable, though it may not be as sharp as it once was. On the reverse side, the eagle shape is still visible, though some of the finer feather details may be worn away. Many people might assume that a coin in this condition could never be extremely valuable. However, rarity often matters more than condition. When a coin is extremely difficult to find, collectors may still be willing to pay large amounts even for circulated examples. This is especially true when the coin represents an important historical variety or a rare production feature. As collectors began studying the 1965 large date Washington quarter, interest in the coin gradually increased. Specialists searched through bankrolls, old collections, and inherited coin jars hoping to discover an example of this rare variety. Over time, a few confirmed examples were identified, and each discovery created excitement among collectors. Eventually, one particular coin appeared at a major coin auction. The coin had clearly circulated for many years and showed scratches from everyday use. Experts graded it as fine condition, meaning it had experienced wear but still preserved the essential features needed to confirm the variety. The large date style was visible enough for specialists to recognize its rarity. Even before the auction started, collectors were already talking about the coin. Rare varieties from important years often attract attention because they represent unique moments in the history of coin production. The 1965 Washington quarter was already significant because it marked the first year of clad coinage, and the large date variety made it even more interesting. When the auction began, the bidding started at a relatively modest level. Within moments, the price began to climb as collectors placed their offers. Hundreds of dollars quickly turned into thousands. The room grew quiet as bidders focused on the rising numbers. Rare coins have a special way of creating excitement during auctions. Collectors understand that opportunities to purchase such coins may appear only once in many years. Missing the chance could mean waiting decades before another example appears. As the bidding continued, the price climbed higher and higher. Determined collectors competed with each other, each hoping to secure the rare coin for their collection. The auctioneer called out the rising numbers while the audience watched in anticipation. Finally, the bidding reached an astonishing level. After a final round of determined offers, the auctioneer raised the hammer and announced the final sale. The rare 1965 Washington quarter with the large date variety had reached an incredible auction value of approximately $210,000.